How does someone who says they can barely change a light bulb end up leading companies that power the backbone of the industrial economy?
Super unhandy guy in industrial sales, yep.
Yeah. I'd love to see you in a hard hat at a distribution center,
right.
Pretending
I'm going to DC. Me in a mine or something is probably a little more funny.
This week, we're speaking with Carruthers. Cort spent decades leading and transforming major logistics and distribution businesses, from executive roles at Purolator to serving as group president of the Americas for Grainger. He's technically retired twice, once at only 38 years old, but kept coming back. Most recently, he stepped in to lead multi-billion-dollar packaging distributor TricorBraun. These days, Cort brings his experience to multiple boards and dedicates significant time to charitable work focused on food insecurity and refereeing local hockey games. And yet, Cort recalls how isolating it can feel to lead an organization.
You're there to support them. You're not there to burden them. They're not there for you to come and burden them with your issues as CEO. So if you're interacting with the board or the sponsors or a tough challenge, they might be involved in helping solve that challenge, but you certainly don't want to bring them your frustrations, your gripes, your issues, because that's not your job. Your job is to make them as good as they can possibly be so they can make the people on their team as good as they can possibly be.
This is Ordinary Greatness. It's not a show about building a career through privilege or connections, but about real people who achieved great things and the lessons they learned along the way. Whether you're just getting started on your career journey, considering a change, or interested in hearing stories of leaders who have made it, this is a show for you. Cort and I started out by talking about how he knew early on that he'd end up in the business world, even if he wasn't exactly sure what shape that would take.
I grew up in a small town, farm town in Western Canada. Dad owned the local construction company, kind of an oil field type of town. So building camps in oil fields in Western Canada in the boom in the 70s and the bust in the 80s. And so, very entrepreneurial, very small town, kind of everyone's involved in the business all the time because that's what it's like in a construction company. And so just had that entrepreneurial spirit early. Not the type of person who's going to start a company. I have immense respect for people that would do that. I think one of the things I learned, I'm a good guy to take something small-ish and grow it. I'm not the right person to start something from zero. That's a really special type of person to do that.
Well, how did you figure that out?
Being around the things, right? And you sort of, through trial and error, figure out what you're good at. Was fortunate enough to take a number of things and, grow them a lot over time. And when there's a base there, I think I've always been able to sort of see what the potential could be for something, what you could grow it into, and how to take it to that. I think all of the vision of just creating something from nothing, it's just a completely different skill set and just not one that I had. Was involved in one startup and it didn't go very well and I didn't particularly enjoy it. I learned a ton doing it. And it takes a very different type of person, I think, to do that and have immense respect for those folks. And I think everybody has a different set of strengths and weaknesses. And one of the great things I think about a career is you get to apply those things, learn about them, see what works well, see what doesn't work well, and kind of figure that out over time. And then once you can figure that out, try and find those things that you can really do something different than other people can do.
So at an early age, you didn't want to go into the construction business. Is that how you decided to go to uni?
I might be the least handy person you've ever met. So as my dad says, who could build anything by hand, including houses, and, have stood in fields with him where he's described, multi-hundred unit developments that will go there and then see them go there, 5, 6, 7 years later. I can barely change a light bulb, which is funny, having basically, run all of Grainger at different points of time, over time, super unhandy. So the construction business was not going to happen. As my dad said, the construction gene skipped a generation. Thank God my wife is super handy. So we have it covered as a couple. But yeah, construction was not going to be for me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I did grow up, love business and love the idea of trying to put deals together, trying to grow things, trying to build teams of people to do stuff.
To get more exposure to business, did you, in the summers, go back and work in the family business, or did you do other things? Like, how did you?
Lots of different jobs. I was playing a bunch of different competitive sports as well, and so that took up a fairly significant chunk of the summers, but I did every job and was encouraged to kind of do every job from a young age. So, the local paper route, one of the things I figured out, we had 2 papers in our hometown. I had them both on the same route, which seemed like a pretty obvious thing to do to sort of get
good.
some leverage, right, on the time that you spent early morning.
Yeah.
The worst part of that job was trying to collect the money after. That was absolutely horrible. Worked in restaurants. I mean, kind of did a ton of different jobs over time. And so was encouraged to work part-time. And then I've always done a lot of different volunteer work, even kind of from junior high school age. And so that, you learn a lot career-wise doing that type of work too, the things you're good at, the things you're not good at, the things you like, the things you don't like too.
Yeah, I know there's this debate in the country about mandatory service. I think everybody should work in a restaurant once.
I think just do hard jobs so you appreciate the people that do hard jobs, right? And, those are great. I had, a lot of fun with a lot of great people working and I worked in kitchens. I wasn't serving. I mean, I was cooking. I was working in the dish pit. I was doing all that stuff. Absolutely. And I actually enjoyed doing all of that. One of the things you learn is how to feed yourself too from that experience. But just learn how hard those jobs are day in and day out. Whether it's retail, I grew up in transportation before I was doing distribution, but just great for everyone to go have all of those different experiences. And I certainly encourage my kids, our kids work in the summer, and it's great to have different experiences to see what you like and don't like, what you're good at, what you're not good at, but also just to learn what hard work's all about.
How did you get exposure to Purolator as a place to start your career?
Recruiter. So just straight luck. And I think so much of career success, when I hear everyone, I'm self-made and I'm this and I'm that, so much of life is just good fortune, right? So a recruiter, I was in a sales job in educational publishing, really tough job, good first job, but really challenging first job, and went to the recruiter and said, I'd like to do something at a bigger company, more professional, and really with kind of a growth path. And so, they presented me 3 or 4 different options, copier sales, I think maybe food sales, and Purolator, which folks may or may not know is kind of the UPS or FedEx of Canada at the time I was there, bigger than both of them combined in that market. And so was just fortunate to get that job. And one of the great things about Purolator, they hired young, aggressive people. I mean, we worked 70, 80 hours a week. You either, married someone at work or one of your customers because you didn't do anything other than work, but gave tons of responsibility to young people early. And so was really blessed to end up there and had some fantastic mentors there that taught me how to sell, how to build teams, how to hire, how to take care of customers. And it just turned out to be a great, great place. And the best things, I met my wife working there too. So that was the best element of all of it.
Yeah, I love the meeting your wife piece. It's making the case for return to office, right?
It was very serendipitous, right? Yeah. And that's the stuff where those small things, and I had a kind of a decision to make about whether or not I'd move to Toronto with Purolator or not, and took that decision and flew in on a Saturday. On the Sunday, I went in to figure out where my office was and what I'd be doing on the Monday, and it was, my wife had just started that week, and we were the only 2 people in the office and been together ever since. So just pure serendipity.
Yeah. Well, side note, that's how I met my wife. So
not uncommon if you're working 70, 80 hours a week, because that's pretty much all you're doing.
Yeah. Well, similar to you, I think we were probably average age 20 years younger than everybody else that we worked with.
Well, ours is a little different. So we were all young, and we still have 4 or 5 couples friends
close,
that everybody all worked together, and everybody all got married coming out of the company.
So fun.
And it was an interesting thing in, a different era and a different time. The company actually encouraged that, provided it was, there were no reporting relationships. It was transparent and in the open, because the idea was then everyone was just going to work more.
Yeah, of course. All you get married, get mortgages, have kids,
right.
Have a reason to work hard.
Right, exactly.
Court was thriving at Purolator, but he felt drawn to take on new challenges outside of his comfort zone. Over the next 20 years, he did just that, taking on roles in everything from a dot-com startup to the distribution powerhouse Grainger, and eventually stepping in as CEO of TricorBraun. Each of these roles has taught him different things: how failure can sharpen your instincts, why listening matters more than rushing in, and how leadership, especially at the very top, can be deeply isolating if you're not careful. This impressive chapter of Court's life began with a surprise announcement and some questionable timing.
It's amazing I'm still married. So we got married in March of 2000. And so we were on our honeymoon, and I told my wife I was going to be leaving Purolator to go do the startup.
On your honeymoon?
And on the first night on the honeymoon, and she left the table in tears. And it's amazing we're still happily married. At that time, I was 26 years old. I was running all of the Purolator commercial organization, which was, 250 or so people at a young age. Great job. We were killing it as a company. Like, things were really good. But it's also at that age where you can go try different stuff. Whether it works out, doesn't work out, everything's going to be fine. She had a great senior job that paid well. And so I thought, why not take a chance to go do something different? Learned a ton doing it. We raised a bunch of money, I don't know, $30+ million. And I was the head commercial officer. I wasn't the CEO of the business. Had some technology that didn't work as we hoped it would. Had a business plan that probably wasn't the right business plan. And I own lots of that. We had our final meeting for the next round of funding on 9/11 for that company. And that we wound that company down at the end of September 2001.
What did it take, and how long did it take for you to bounce back, find something else?
Yeah, the first thing is I had a number of friends working there, and so the biggest thing was make sure everybody had a job. So by the time everybody, we turned the lights out in September, everybody had another job, and these were all, very high performing, very, very good people.
That's a pretty blessed outcome.
Yeah.
In what you're, what you're calling a failure, right?
Turned out well. Oh, it's a definite failure. I think we lit a match to $30-some million of investor money and a bunch of my own money. I lost a bunch of money in the deal myself, so I don't say that in any humorous way, but that's absolutely a failure, but a great learning.
I'm curious if you agree with this. So, I feel similar to you. Something you said earlier. So when people's careers have just been nothing but up and to the right, and haven't faced challenges like that, or had failures, or say they don't have failures, it raises questions. I'm a little skeptical, and I also wonder how resilient they are. I don't know. What have you seen?
I think life is more failure than anything, even if you're super successful. There's failures all day, every day. And, I spend so much time talking to my kids about things that frustrate them or go wrong at school, or an exam doesn't go their way, or, an assignment isn't the grade they thought, or something bad happens in sports. Welcome to life. Life is mostly failure, mostly obstacle, mostly challenge. And the fun part's trying to keep battling through all that stuff, right? So, is that easier to do when you're in your mid-20s and don't have kids you're supporting and your spouse has a good job? For sure. That's the time to take some of those risks. Do you feel differently about that in your mid-40s and you're responsible for, maybe not only kids, but also parents too? Yeah, it's a different time, and you take different risks. But I think everything in life is setbacks and obstacles. They're a daily occurrence.
So what'd you do after that?
Again, recruiter came in with an opportunity to run the...
Pesky recruiters.
Came in to run with an opportunity to run the Canadian sales organization for Grainger, which is going through a bit of a transformation. Hadn't really been growing. Great 100-year-old business. And so I had a chance to go in there and try and help that grow a little faster. But owned by, the bluest of blue chip American distribution firms in WW Grainger, right? So some turnaround in Canada, but the parent company is as good a company as has ever been built.
A new environment, right? You're learning something a little bit new. It's adjacent.
Super unhandy guy in industrial sales. Yep.
Yeah. I'd love to see you in a hard hat at a distribution center,
right?
Pretending
I'm going to DC. Me in a mine or something is probably a little more funny, but yeah.
I'm assuming that you needed to display a certain level of hit the ground running and,
I don't think you can hit the ground running. I don't know if it's worried. To me, the best part of doing something new is learning. Yeah. Learning something new is the best thing, most engaging thing that you can do. And doing it with awesome people, that's as good as a thing gets. And so my view is just going to listen. So I spent a ton of time out in the field with customers, in branches, with team members, trying to figure out what's working, what's not working, who's doing a great job, who's maybe in the wrong job. How do we attack the market? What are the competitors doing? What do customers want differently? I love all that stuff. And I think the idea of, people are going to come in and make an immediate mark is a massive mistake that people make. Come in and listen, right? Because the people that are there know. The customers know. The good team members know, right? And so just come in and listen. And so that's...
And you didn't feel any pressure?
Well, I there's always pressure, but I just think, what's the best way to perform, right? You got to come in and learn. You can't... If you take action without understanding what's going on, it's not going to work, right? And so I've just always been very clear, kind of 100-day plan, which is listen, learn, and probably pretty quickly after that, start making changes. And I'm a huge believer that everything's about the team. And so, you start changing team members. And that doesn't mean some mass firing or something like that. A lot of times just get people in the right job, right? And have the right leaders, make sure they've got the right leaders. And so I spend most of my time on that, make sure they're taking care of customers, make sure they're taking care of their team. And if you get that right, the rest of it all comes together, provided you've got a good value proposition, a good business. I mean, those fundamental underlying things. And so I just spent all my time on that. Yeah, and I love the learning a new industry.
How long were you in Canada before you came down here?
Was in Canada 10 years. So we grew the commercial business significantly. I ended up running the private label business, so the private label hand tools and other products, the imported from other parts of the world. Ran the branch network in central Canada for a while, in conjunction while still running sales. Did my MBA at the same time. This is all pre-kids, so you have the benefit of maybe a little bit more time to do things, and then took over the Canadian business in 2006, and we had a great run there. More than doubled the top line, increased the bottom line more than 5 times. Did a bunch of acquisitions, did a bunch of organic greenfield growth, built an unbelievable team, recognized as one of the top corporate cultures in Canada up against the big banks and the big healthcare systems. After our second kid was born and I was traveling 200 nights a year in that job, needed to do something different.
Yeah.
So ended up down here in 2012 running Grainger in the US, and then shortly after that running all of North and South America for Grainger.
I've heard many times that the CEO role can be very lonely. Do you agree? And if so, how do you make it less lonely?
Yeah, I think the CEO role can be lonely if you're doing it the right way in some circumstances. And so what that means is, part of the job as CEO, you're the leader. And so I think you want to be, the best CEOs are super close with their team. And I would like to think, and I hope the team feels that way, that I have very close relationships with each of them, different with each of them, because everyone's a different personality, and I support and interact and engage with them differently. So you're super close. At the same time, you're there to support them. You're not there to burden them. They're not there for you to come and burden them with your issues as CEO. So if you're interacting with the board or the sponsors or a tough challenge, they might be involved in helping solve that challenge, but you certainly don't want to bring them your frustrations, your gripes, your issues, because that's not your job. Your job is to make them as good as they can possibly be so they can make the people on their team as good as they can possibly be. And so I think the loneliness comes from, if you're doing it right, you're very, very close to those people. So I don't feel lonely from that perspective. As I said, you're in the foxhole together. It's like family. It's a super powerful bond, but you should never be burdening them with kind of the things that you're necessarily worried about. And so then where do you find that support group? And so I found that very blessed through other organizations like YPO to have a group of other CEOs where you can have, and I've got a small group forum through YPO. I've been blessed to have had an amazing one when I was in Toronto, an amazing one here in Chicago, where you can go very, very deep and be very vulnerable on the things you're worried about, maybe the things I'm not doing a good job on. And what do you guys think about this? And how could you help me do a better job with this? What am I missing? What did I get wrong here? Because you do miss, to a certain extent, that coach, that mentor that you might have when you're a functional leader. The CEO is that coach and mentor. As the CEO, who is that for you? Could be a trusted board member, could be a trusted person with the sponsor, maybe not the principal deal person, but might be an operating partner, might be someone else in the company, might be a fellow portfolio company CEO. Everyone needs trusted advisors because nobody has all the answers, especially me. Nobody has all the answers.
Court has the rare experience of retiring not once, but twice. The first time was in 2015, after serving as president of multiple regions of Grainger. He was in his mid-40s and ready for something different. He joined several boards, became very involved with private equity, dove into charity work, and spent as much time at the local hockey rink as he could. A few years later, he stepped back into the office as CEO of TricorBraun. Today, he's once again living the retired life, now in his 50s. What he's learned from both experiences is this: if you want retirement to be fulfilling, you need more than a financial plan. You need a plan for your time.
I ended up, I think, on 9 boards the first time I retired. I don't recommend that. But a mix of private equity, public, and family. Not my family, but helping other family businesses. On the nonprofit side, was president of our private school board at the time, the Montessori school the kids went to, ran the local hockey program, on the board of the food bank. We've always been involved in kind of food security. You just have to find stuff you like doing. Like the idea of retiring just to not work and do nothing does not fulfill anybody. And I think the risk is people often end up going back to work early because they have no other idea what to do with themselves. I still have a situation where I have more stuff I want to do than I have time to do it, even in retirement. So now my second go around, I think I'm doing 5 or 6 boards and sort of capped out at that level, doing some teaching because I finished my doctorate in that intervening period, still doing a bunch of nonprofit work rather than coaching hockey, now officiating hockey and helping train younger officials. And so just finding different things that someone really enjoys doing and spending a ton of time with my wife and friends and kids and, the normal retirement stuff too.
But did this second time around, seems like you maybe had a little bit more time to plan it. And I think that's the mistake that I see people make is they just, they retire or something happens with their job and they think, okay, well, I'm 60 and maybe it's the time. And if they don't have a plan, I don't know what they're going to be doing or how they're going to fill the hours, that's a problem.
Yeah, you need a plan, and there's tons of research around this. And everybody's usually good for the first 6 to 12 months because people are tired and they take the trips and do all that stuff. And I think uniquely for me, I still have kids at home. And so, we're still I can't just take off and do trips because we've still got kids at home that we're responsible for. But I planned the first one for a long time too. I actually ended up staying at Grainger a little bit longer than I had originally planned or we had planned together, just timing of CEO succession. And so did have a good plan, was on 3 boards when I left there. I think the difference this time is that I've just had the experience of doing it once before. So I know what is a good fit board-wise, what is a good fit from a philanthropic standpoint. I don't know if I'm more planned this time. I just have the experience of having done it once before.
Is there something in particular that happened or that you're aware of that got you so excited about the food insecurity mission? Or
so just, we talked earlier, my parents had always said, I had to be involved doing charitable work, philanthropic work early. That was a non-negotiable. You could pick what you wanted to do, but you were going to do it. We're 11, 12 years old. And so I've always done something. And so I got involved with the food bank in Edmonton. It was actually the first food bank in Canada. I got involved there in the late 80s when I was still in high school, worked there a day a week all through university. Was involved with the food bank in Calgary, was on the board of the food bank in one of the Toronto suburbs. And so food insecurity has just always been a big thing for us. My wife Kirsten and I actually ran a program, 2 different programs, school-based programs to feed kids in Mississauga, a suburb of Toronto, before school, in coordination with the food bank. But someone would be there every day, often us, but a lot of our friends as well when we were Purolator, to feed kids before school. And what you find is a lot of those kids, that was the meal for the day. And you'd have a kid saying, can I get, 10 pieces of toast to put in my locker, right? Because that's going to be lunch. You can't learn. You go back to, again, we talked about people that say they're self-made, right? You might be self-made because you had great parents, great education, food in your stomach, a roof over your head, born in a democracy. There's a lot of stuff that goes into quote unquote self-made. And so for me, food insecurity, if you don't have enough food to eat, the rest of it you can't do anything else, including learn, right, as a little kid. Yeah. And so that's just always been something for us. And we're still involved with the food bank here. And so that's just something for us that's kind of a fundamental underpinning.
But what if you're not thinking about retirement? What if you're just getting started, still climbing, still figuring out your next move? Court shares some powerful advice about finding the right fit and how he manages to be one of the most productive people I know.
I've been really blessed to work at 3 super engaged cultures, Purolator, Grainger, and TricorBraun. And I think a lot of people go their whole life and maybe don't see one. And I've seen 3. And I think helped contribute to building those 3, but they were also great cultures before I got to any of them.
Would that be a warning sign to you? Say you're earlier in your career, and you had big chunks of time with those 3 companies, so displayed loyalty. But, when you know it's time to head for the exit door?
Well, I think when you start out somewhere, you don't know anything. You don't know what a good company is or a bad company is, right? You don't, and I didn't. No, you don't. I don't mean that in any critical way. None of us knows when you start a thing, right? You don't know. And I think we all assume every place is good. I think my experience is, not even the majority of places are good cultures, right? And by good, I mean, care about people, care about customers, live the values that they espouse. There's, and different companies have different value sets and have different cultures. I don't think there's a right or a wrong culture. But finding that one that's a good fit for you, that cares about people, where you've got a good leader, where you've got the chance to grow, where you've got the chance to be challenged, where you've got the chance to take on more responsibility, like that's less than half the businesses out there. And sometimes the good ones that are like that can fall off doing that. And sometimes the ones that aren't as good can come up into that. It takes a long time. But I don't think you know what that is until you get in and experience a few. But certainly a conversation I have with people a lot, and I spend a lot of time talking to maybe late 20s, early 30s, often hockey coaches that are thinking about, they're maybe balancing a part-time career, part-time hockey. Do I want to be a full-time hockey coach and really go at that and try and grow that way? Or do I want to be, a full-time engineer, stockbroker, salesperson, P&L leader? And so, the challenge is when you're that you don't necessarily know what a good culture is. And so, I've had many of those people. We talk about, hey, why are you thinking about changing jobs? Well, I hate these things at my current company, right? And I always go to, well, what's all the stuff you like? Because every company has a list of pros and a list of cons, including ones that I've run where I had tons of cons I just hadn't gotten to fixing yet, right? Like everything's got pros and cons. And then I say, but I'm going to go to this new company because it has all these pros and doesn't have the cons of this current place. Say, but it's got all its own cons. You just start to think about, once you find a great place, there will still be irritants. Even the CEO has irritants. Like there's irritants everywhere. But when you find a great place, like that's a very special thing. And I think it is important to find then the growth opportunities in those special places. So I just feel super blessed that I've had 3 of those. And I know a lot of people are lucky to get one.
I've said this to you before, you've pushed back, but I've got to bring it up again. I think you're one of the most productive people I've ever been around. And I was thinking, I went back through the timeline of some of the educational things you've done, the charitable things that you've done, the things that I know you've done, with your family, and the things I know you've accomplished in your career. I imagine you have like an efficiency book somewhere within you. But I mean, lessons learned, how you manage yourself, how you do manage your time, during these peaks and valleys.
It's funny. I would actually not consider myself productive. Like, I appreciate that comment.
Mm-hmm. I have data otherwise.
But I'm not overly structured. And people that work closely with me, and we've worked on projects together, I'm not super structured. I think when things require time and attention, I have the ability to dial in very tightly to those things for a long period of time. So if something needs to be done for multiple days, a deal, writing my thesis for school, an emergency from a family perspective, sick parents, whatever, that I can dial that in to be super efficient for a period of time on that specific thing. But I sleep 7 to 8 hours a night. I do look at Instagram sometimes. I do watch TV. I do watch a lot of sports. It's not that there is no sort of time frittered away. It's just that, I try and spend the time mostly on things that I like to do. And so I like education. So I've invested time in, getting additional degrees and learning other things. I pick work things where I love the people I work with, and the work problems we're working on are interesting. And so it's easy to devote time to that. And I'm blessed that I can just choose to work on the stuff I want to work on at this point. That wasn't always the case, but that's the case now. The community things I do, I'm super passionate about with awesome people. And so, it's easy to spend time on things with awesome people that you love doing. And I think if you can fill your calendar or your responsibilities with those things, I think it's easy to be efficient with that stuff. And it's not even efficient because I'll probably spend an inordinate amount of time on those things, more time than others might spend, because I love doing them and love the people I'm doing them with. What I try not to do is have anything in there that I don't want to do. So a board, a job, a community commitment, anything that I don't want to do. And that doesn't mean easy things, because I'm happy to take on the hard stuff that no one else wants to do, but there's a reason I'm doing it, but I never do something just for the sake of doing it.
So you're good at cutting things out.
Well, some of my friends would say I probably say yes to too many things still because I really want to help people. And so when someone reaches out to help with something, I have a really hard time saying no to that. And I've got it.
Like getting invited to someone's first podcast.
Yeah, right. There you go. But I've got a super close friend she's been a like uber successful CEO multiple times. And, she's the one, she'll text me. She's like, hey, you don't have time for that. Do you want me to say no to that? You shouldn't be doing that. And so, she's a bit of my alter ego sometimes. But if someone needs help, I always want to say yes to that because look, like people have always said yes to me when I've needed help with stuff. And so that would be the one. So I would say not necessarily great at doing that, but probably pretty good at not adding things that don't really excite me.
What's some other good evergreen advice you give to young people?
Well, I'm a big believer in like the best compliment I can give to anybody is competent. And people might hear that and say, well, that's not very exciting, like competent. But I don't care what the job is. When you're going to check in at the hotel and you're watching 4 different people at the front desk, you're looking for the person who's really good. When you're at the McDonald's or Chipotle or whatever, and you're like, give me the person who's really good at what they're doing. And so what I talk to my kids about, and what I always try and do, whatever the thing I'm doing is, try and be as good as you possibly can be at it. I don't care what the job is. I don't care if it's paid, unpaid. If you're packing boxes at the food bank, which we still go and do as good a job as you can possibly do at that thing. And so the only way you can get competence at anything is repetition. And sometimes people don't like repetition. They want the promotion to come faster. I'm sick of doing this job. I want to go to the next thing. But the biggest thing in a career, when I talked about, counseling people in their late 20s, early 30s, have you shown competence? If you're doing the same job every 18 months, just for a little bit more of a raise, but by the time you're 30, all you've done is that one job at 5 different companies, maybe you've shown competence, but you haven't shown growth, right? And so I like to see and coach people, find a great place, then grow and show that you can grow and expand in that place, take on more responsibility, take on additional tasks. And so my advice is find a great place. If it's not a great place, totally fine to go find another one because lots of places aren't a great place. But when you find that great place, take on more responsibility, do an amazing job, find more things to do, and show that growth and grow that competence.
Any thoughts about, in general, retiring early? Good goal to have? I mean, if somebody said, hey, I'd like to do the same thing, how do you go about doing that?
I don't know that retiring early, and I would also say I'm probably semi-retired. I would say my day is still a pretty full day. It's just not full of one single paid job.
Yeah, I'm still not convinced that you don't have some sort of magical way of managing your day-to-day, but
there's no, do things you like doing with people you like doing them with. That's it. I think the idea of financial independence, and that doesn't mean you have to be wealthy, but it means not taking on debt, spending less than you make, investing from the time, my kids are in high school, you can put earned income in a Roth IRA when you have earned income as young as you are. My paper route when I was a little kid, I didn't do it, but you can do it as young as you want. Financial independence means you can work on whatever you want to work on. It means if you don't like the job, you can take a little bit of risk going to the next thing. You are not beholden to others. And so I don't think retiring early, that's a great goal for others. I have lots of other friends that worked. My dad worked till he was 80. My mom worked till she was 75. They loved what they did. It was absolutely the right thing for them to be doing. Tons of people work their whole life and love doing it. It is their life's work. That's fantastic. I just have a diversity of things I want to work on. That's different for every single person. But the idea of don't be beholden to others because you've got credit card debt, spending money on consumer things you don't need that won't make you happy. Like that's what I spend a ton of time talking to my kids about because I just think that to the extent we spend less than we make, whatever that amount is. And I remember taking back, in Canada, as we could pop bottles to the bottle depot to put gas in my car when I was in my early 20s, right? Like literally no money, but how can you stay out of debt in that situation, right? And, obviously you take on debt to get a mortgage or a first car or all those things. But our focus was always try and get out of that debt as soon as you possibly could. Always spend less than you make and just try and live a not extravagant lifestyle. I think that's a great goal for everybody. And then you can still work your whole life. And if you want, give that money to charity. Do other things with your money. But that's more what I think about. And I think people will retire at different ages and stages. And that's going to be different for each person.
And now, some rapid fire questions.
What do you think you would have been doing if you didn't end up, running distribution companies?
That's a tough rapid fire starter.
Yeah.
Maybe playing music, maybe working in a nonprofit, maybe coaching sports.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Playing music. What instrument?
Drums, still play.
You still play the drums?
Mm-hmm.
Do you play in like a local band?
Not anymore.
No?
No, not in Chicago, but yeah, I did all the years growing up for sure. Yeah.
All right. What would be like the first 3 cover band songs if you were just like playing a gig?
Well, I played in everything. So I trained with the percussionist in the local symphony orchestra.
Okay.
So I have everything from jazz to orchestral to death metal, and have done studio work across all that stuff and love doing all of it.
Your favorite drummer?
Oh, probably Neil Peart, no longer with us.
All right. Best concert you've ever been to?
We had a chance to go to the Grammys 5 or 6 times. So as a musical event would be tough to probably top.
Okay.
Probably
How do you get
top
an invite
that.
to the Grammys?
Great friends who are involved in organizing those types of things.
Oh my goodness. Best hockey game you've ever been to live?
Canada, U.S. overtime 2010 Olympic gold medal win.
That's a good one.
Yeah, we were sponsors for the Olympics. Couldn't have been a better one than that, probably.
Amazing.
Although my American friends may disagree.
Wait, where was that?
Vancouver,
Amazing.
2010 Olympics.
Hometown.
Yeah. The golden goal, as they say, Sidney Crosby. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a really good one.
U.S. tied it up in the last minute. I would say there was a lot of anxiety in the building, and Crosby scored maybe a little bit of a weak goal, too, on Ryan Miller to win it. So it was awesome to be there.
That is pretty good. Yeah. Tough to beat. All right. I definitely can't beat that.
I think I'm supposed to say my kids winning the state championship, which they've each done, but
Don't say that.
yeah.
So what stuck with me from this conversation with Court? Whatever you decide to do it well.
Whatever the thing I'm doing is, try and be as good as you possibly can be at it. I don't care what the job is. I don't care if it's paid, unpaid. If you're packing boxes at the food bank, which we still go and do as good a job as you can possibly do at that thing. The only way you can get competence at anything is repetition.
If you're a leader and you don't have a support group you can go to about problems at work, create one.
Could be a trusted board member. Could be a trusted person with the sponsor. Maybe not the principal deal person, but might be an operating partner, might be someone else in the company, might be a fellow portfolio company CEO. Everyone needs trusted advisors because nobody has all the answers, especially me. Nobody has all the answers.
And lastly, prioritize your time.
I'm happy to take on the hard stuff that no one else wants to do, but there's a reason I'm doing it, but I never do something just for the sake of doing it.
This has been Ordinary Greatness. Subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming episodes, and please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn to let me know what you think of the show. Catch you next time.